You're here. You've reached it. The 5 reasons you shouldn't back. Wait, no, that's not what it is. Puerto Rico, the special edition. Puerto Rico is back on GameFound. It has raised over almost $2 million US. It will have raised $2 million US by the time I'm finished recording this video. And if it doesn't happen, then this video is going to be very, very long as we just sit and we wait. But with the success of Castles of Burgundy, the new anniversary edition that happened right after an anniversary edition, the good people at Ravensburger and Awakened Realms thought, well, let's do it again. Yes, we already released a new version of Puerto Rico 2 years ago, but we're gonna do it once more because people like crowdfunding games instead of just getting it in retail. Welcome to the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Puerto Rico, the special edition on GameFound. This is a series that I do whenever a campaign reaches over $1 million to put your excitement to the test. It is very fun to click that back button and get that dopamine hit right now, but I have found in the past, in my own spending habits, that sometimes the excitement doesn't hold water once the 2 years have passed and the edition comes to my door. I think, why did I do this to myself? You stupid idiot baby with no self-control. You shouldn't have just eaten the marshmallow. You should have waited and you could have gotten 2 marshmallows. That is what this series is all about. This series is not to be mean, although that is the type of person who I am at my core. This series is to make sure that you are equally excited when the game arrives at your door as you are right now, when you're hitting the back button. And you have forgotten that you have 80 Kickstarter or GameFound campaigns on the way. Or 20. 20! For a lot of you, that's over a 20% increase to your entire gaming library. You think you've got room for one more? Let's see. But before we do this, I always like to talk about why I'm excited about the game. And honestly, I like Puerto Rico as a game better than Castles of Burgundy. I do. Puerto Rico introduced me to a lot of really great mechanisms, sort of showed me what modern board gaming could do. I say modern board gaming, it came out in 2002, and there's a reason why it has been in the top 100 since 2002. That is a huge feat. It is the #1 game from 2002 that's still up there, and there is a lot to get excited about. It is fun revitalizing a classic, and especially a classic that has still held water and I think can still go toe-to-toe with a lot of modern Euro games. Depending upon how your preferences have shaped and have shifted, that's going to depend on if you like the game or not, but it's still something that I actively enjoy and am really considering getting this edition for sure. Oh, this is out of date though. People have been, something jumped over it. Something jumped over it because it's now number 45. Will it get the coveted scores of 9 and 2 and just 9 or just 2? It's nice when you know that's your market. You get 9s or you get 2s. Nowhere in between. I don't know. But I was really contemplating, I was wondering if this would do enough to get me to pull the trigger, because I was really excited when Puerto Rico 1897 came out, and this is the definitive edition of Puerto Rico 1987. They put the little 1987 in the corner, kind of like they did the Cultural Consultant. We'll get into all that, but it is nice having the idea of getting some of the expansions. I've never played with any of the expansions of Puerto Rico, and I've been completely fine with them, but it is nice getting a revitalized and revamped version, and so I was excited about that. And really, this is one of my favorite things of the plastic insert, having a space to put your buildings and to lay them all out to make setup a little bit easier. That's one of the things that I really like, that I think is a really nice quality of life improvement here, is having those trays. Sort of Kemet did it when you have a market of tiles. It's annoying to, it's not annoying, but it just takes a little bit for setup to pull them out and to organize them and put them all in their spots. And in this one, you don't have to do that. So there's a few nice quality of life improvements. There are some that I really don't care about. But the main thing that draws me in is the gameplay itself. Puerto Rico is a really solid game. The game mechanisms are fun. It has one of my favorite mechanics of all time, which I'm going to talk about as a point in case you hate it. And when you play with people who also really like the game, it can cook in such a great way. There is absolutely no disputing that Puerto Rico should be in the top 100 of Board Game Geek, in my opinion. I think it is a fantastic design. And if you haven't played it, you can play it on Board Game Arena and kind of get a feel of it and see if you want to own a copy and see if you'll actually play it in real life. When I started playing it on Board Game Arena, I kind of stopped playing my copy of Puerto Rico in real life for reasons, again, that we'll talk about as we move forward. So instead of me just gatekeeping all of this information, why don't we get to the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Puerto Rico? And reason number 5 has to deal with Puerto Rico's history. I figured I'd get this one out of the way because for me, it's a little relevant to the discussion. I know for some people it may not be relevant, but the storied history of Puerto Rico is, hey, they made this with a nice white guy on the cover in 2002, where all games were inherently about colonialism. And over the course of the years, some people, not everybody, and I know that there are adamant Puerto Ricans who are in the comments of Room and Board videos who say that they're fine with it, but some people have brought up the issues of colonialism, that you're getting the new workers off of boats to come work in your plantations. It doesn't feel as great as it potentially could be. And so Puerto Rico was revamped, was re-implemented just recently in 2022, 2 years ago, as Puerto Rico 1897. This was sort of spearheaded by a man named Jason Perez, who does the YouTube channel Shelf Stories, which I think is a phenomenal channel. I've always really loved how Jason talks about culture and identity in board gaming and approaches it with a lot more care and compassion than I could in some instances. And so I was super stoked when Puerto Rico 1897 was coming out. I was like, great, I can get this new thing. I can support this new implementation. I can get beautiful new art. Like, the art is outrageous in this edition, and they've taken a lot of that art. You can see these portraits are basically replicated here as well. Boom, there's the portrait right there. They're just taking it from the 1897 version. Even though they do say that there's a new art style, I think that's more of to just shift up the landscape of the board. But so Puerto Rico 1897 came out in 2022. It just kind of came and went. The first print run had a significant amount of production issues, but I think they fixed that on the second print run. And so I was waiting till the second print run because I was like, I don't want to get this first print run where they don't have the powers on the tiles, or they don't even have the names of the buildings, and you have to do this weird iconography thing. And so I was waiting to get my copy of that, and then they announced this new copy, and I'm sure anybody who was waiting to get a better second edition was like, oh, okay, I'll just get this edition. Jason Perez has a whole hour-and-a-half video talking about his experience on Puerto Rico and as a cultural consultant, and just feeling a bit burned by the company. Basically, what it seems to recap, the very too long didn't watch, was that he came on board as a cultural consultant, and that was it. That was back in a time where cultural consultants weren't like really around that much, so there weren't sort of standard contracts. He over-delivered on his effort and promises in good faith that he could have access to future projects. And that's the impression that I've gotten from the video, that people were like, handshake deals sort of thing, like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So we put a whole ton of effort and love and blood, sweat, and tears into this new version. And then it came out, and then there were production issues, and then nothing happened with it. And then this new version came out, and he's like, oh, hey, am I going to be involved in the project since I basically came up with the entire retheme for you? And they're like, nah, we're going to hire somebody else so that we don't have to pay you anything. Is pretty much how that went. That's kind of how I have seen it. And that's a real shame to me in terms of that's just how capitalism works. You put in work in one edition. It didn't really pan out. You're going to move that work to the second edition. You're not going to go back to the colonialism theme. So you're obviously going to keep moving forward with 1897, but the work was already done. So why pay somebody additional money when you could pay them a small amount of money from the work that they did, and then just do a new thing and not have to pay them anything? I understand that's how the world works. I understand that's how capitalism works. You want to get everything as cheap as possible and make as many profits as you can. But at the same time, if that sort of thing matters to you, it kind of has cast a sour sadness on Puerto Rico and what I hoped would be this glorious reimagining. Like, I really, really love Puerto Rico, and so was contemplating getting this game, and I was just holding off, and I was like, okay, well then maybe I'll get the special edition. And then to just kind of hear a little bit of the behind the scenes, I figure that's worth bringing up in case those sorts of things matter to you. So Puerto Rico for me has like all this baggage attached to it now, you know, because I know all the behind the scenes stuff, and I'm sure that has happened in a lot of other situations and a lot of other instances, but it just makes me less inclined to get it off the shelf, and honestly makes me more inclined to just pretend I'm playing with the theme and in my edition that I already own and have already purchased, you know? Rather than double dipping for essentially what seems to be like a feel good retheme and not like because they actually wanted to. They just wanted to sell more copies, really. Which, hey, is fine, right? That's how businesses work. But at the same time, I don't know, like, and I could probably get over it too. Realistically, it doesn't really affect me, but it just like it makes me reach for something else. I think that's the thing, and it's not that I'm not purchasing it just out of principle, because come on, I don't have any principles. Well, I mean, I tried to, but that's a different story. Uh, they often go away. We all can sort of put that aside, but I'm thinking of the actual reality of the situation and my own reality of when the last time I played Puerto Rico was, and it's that sort of like, hey, what am I going to suggest? What am I going to reach for? There are a bunch of other Euros that exist, and if there is a thing about it that makes me feel kind of icky or kind of I'm not going to reach for it actively on my shelf. Like in this instance, I purchased it, I have the edition, I want to play it, and then I'll kind of think about it a little every time I pull it off the shelf. And then as I'm playing, I might think about it while I'm playing. And I just don't want to do that, right? If I'm playing a game, I don't really want to be thinking about, exploitation generally. But so I bring this up at the beginning to kind of cover our bases, cover the history, and let you all know, in case you didn't know, kind of the history of what's happened in Puerto Rico. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments down below, people chiming in on this or that. And I mean, feel free. Just, like, don't be racist when you do it. It's all I ask. I don't ask much, but that's what I ask. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is, again, related to 1897. It's that, and kind of related to the stretch goals. It's that I think the stretch goals are going to be monumentally underwhelming. Unless you're getting the special edition, I guess, because I guess you get alternative sculpts for your really little tiny workers, which doesn't matter whatsoever to me. You're also, on day 5, you're getting the ability to flip a tile and make it cost $1 less, which feels like you could easily house rule. And the big stretch goal that they're pushing here is the new 30 achievement cards by Andreas Seyfarth, who created this new expansion where you get goals, basically. You get dealt secret goals, and when you do the thing, you get a bunch of points. I like secret goals in a lot of ways, and in the update, they talked about how newer players really like these secret goals because it gave them something to focus on. I think that's great. However, me not being a newer player, I feel like I would be a little bit kind of shoehorned into a strategy. And on the one hand, it's nice to be able to kind of break up the existing meta that absolutely exists in sort of higher level Puerto Rico if you're good at the game. On the other hand, I don't think in the long run this feels like it will be that impactful. I think it is just a distraction. You know, when you get those games, some objectives are not worth completing. Some objectives are just a distraction because you can min-max your points in another way. And I feel like that's what this expansion is going to ultimately turn out to be. And then their whole pitch is that you get all of the existing expansions and they show these 4 boxes, which they will never come in because they're just building tiles. And like they did with Castle of Burgundy as well. They're like, look at these 13 boxes of expansions you get, when each expansion is just a map. But all of these expansions were included in the anniversary edition of Puerto Rico and were included in 1897 of Puerto Rico, which you can currently get for $50 Canadian instead of paying $81 Canadian plus shipping to hit about $100, to double your price. So with that doubling of the price, what is it that you are actually getting? You're getting a slight difference of art. You're getting what, in my opinion, seems like a more cluttered board. You're getting slightly larger tiles. You're getting a double layer board where you can slot in your your own little picture instead of just having that on a board. Like, for me, the differences here between this special edition, especially if you're just getting the standard edition, and the existing Puerto Rico 1897 are not that significant. Like, they really aren't, and they certainly don't equate to me paying double the cost for it, or triple the cost if I go for all the bling. It's all well and good to get the bling. You'll get some metal coins, you'll get these plastic ships, you'll get little plastic good tokens, and you'll get a bunch of guaranteed teeny tiny little workers. But for this game, which is so quintessential Euro to me, that blinging up doesn't warrant paying triple the cost. And it might for you, but I really don't think it warrants that. And I think the big push here is that if you look here, they'll say, why should you back? Because in retail, you'll easily pay twice the price for the core box and the stretch goals. They started out with one of their biggest stretch goals, and they'll finish with one of their biggest stretch goals. But even in their updates, they said, listen, we're starting out strong. Now, we won't be able to do this every day. We want to manage expectations. There's still a lot of stretch goals, and most of them are very small. Because they're not adding new content, but this is like a little new content thing to the existing game, right? So I imagine that the stretch goals, to me, will continue to feel underwhelming, and maybe that'll change by the end of the campaign. But like, if so, set an alarm for the end of the campaign, or know that you can late pledge and be fine, rather than pledging right now on the promise that these stretch goals will be amazing and that you've bought in now. And then when the time's up, you go, yeah, okay, I guess I've already bought in, rather than seriously evaluating the current options that exist, that you can get all 4 of the expansions in the existing edition that will definitely be going on sale. And you can get that existing edition right now instead of waiting 2 years for it. It just seems like if you are purchasing, especially at that standard pledge, and you're not willing to just go out to the store and get it right now, why are you actually backing? What are you being swept up in? And what is different about this, significantly different, that makes you spend that double or triple the cost? Because I think you should just go get it right now if you wanted to, because it exists and is a good game. And I don't see why we have to have 2 different versions within the span of 2 years. But hey, this one actually exists and is out in the world, and for sure will be on sale because people will be ditching it to get this new shinier version that does exactly the same thing. So let's move on to number 3. Number 3 deals with the mechanics of Puerto Rico, and specifically my 4th favorite mechanism in all of board gaming, and that is the follow mechanism. When I see a game that has a follow mechanism, I think it's Puerto Rico that made me realize I love this. I get very excited. But if you do not, that's important. So the follow mechanism is in Earth. Follow mechanism is in Rising Sun. It's in a bunch of things, but it's basically when I choose something, everybody does that action, but I get a special version of that action. And so for people who really enjoy sort of controlling what their opponents do and when they do it, that is going to be a very exciting thing. If you don't like that, you should not get this game. I'm speaking to people who potentially haven't played this at all, although, yeah, I'm not going to be a snob about it. There are people out there who haven't played Puerto Rico, even though it's been around for a while. There's certainly many games from the 2000s that I haven't played that are well regarded, because you get swept up in the cult of the new, right? And that's what I think is happening here. It's now this is the cult of the new, so now it's acceptable to want to play Puerto Rico. But it still doesn't change the core flow of the game, which is really dependent on you enjoying that follow mechanism or not. There is a tension about predicting what your opponent will do, and trying to make your opponent do the thing that you want, and predicting and overanalyzing and thinking ahead on your turns, and planning everybody else's move and planning what they are going to think and how they're going to think it. And if that gets you excited, great. If that doesn't get you excited, if that feels like, oh my God, how annoying, then you shouldn't be considering this game whatsoever. Like, again, this is the reason why I enjoy Puerto Rico, but I also recognize that this is like the main reason that I enjoy it. And so highlighting that for you all, I feel like that is such a core feeling to this game and what makes it cook, that if you've played games like that and you've hated them, what are you doing? Number 2, I've targeted the standard edition. Now I'm going to target the special edition. Number 2 is your reminder that a lot of this plastic is meaningless. It certainly was in Castles of Burgundy, and it certainly is here. Especially this 3D terrain pack, which is only going to make setup and teardown more annoying, and is only going to obscure important information, and is only going to make the game just bigger. Not better, but bigger. And I recognize that this is often a difference of opinion, but I mean, come on. You're still going to have to draw these tiles out from a bag, the sugar ones, and then you're going to need to replace it with the sugar, right? If there's a different texture on each one of these 3D things, you're drawing them randomly from a bag so that you mix them up, and then you're going to have to take your little fruit section and take your little coffee section and put it on. And I think this is a fun thing as a gimmick, but I just don't see it adding to enormous longevity of the game, especially not at a $131 price. Jeez. Like I said a bit earlier, this is such a quintessential Euro game to me. And to me, that Eurogame experience is enhanced by pushing cubes around. And I recognize that I'm a cheap boy and this sort of shiny stuff doesn't necessarily overwhelm me, but it used to. And I think that's the point that I want to make here, is that if you are new in the crowdfunding scene and if you are new to getting deluxe board games, I think it's very easy to upsell yourself in these situations, especially with Awakened Realms, because they make everything look so good. Even looking through that list of the sugar and the tobacco, I was like, yeah, it's kind of cool. And so I've upsold myself numerous times on campaigns. I upsold myself to an entire all-in pledge of Etherfields back when it was on because I got too excited about a group shipping deal. And I was like, yeah, these minis will be so amazing. All of Awakened Realms add-ons look cool, but are completely pointless and often become frustrating to play with once the gimmick has worn off. And so if you are a person who knows that you love deluxifications, you know that's the only way to experience a game, I still think you're lying to yourself. I still think there's like 50% of you who are lying to yourself, and 50% of you who that really does bring a doubling of joy, a double joy of the experience. But I think we always get so focused, especially in the crowdfunding sphere, of, oh, we have to have this blinged out, it has to feel good. It doesn't matter if you don't like the game. And I think we often let ourselves be swept up by the mounds of plastic and the mounds of stuff and that dopamine hit and that, oh, more sensation, that it really clouds the idea of what is this game truly about. And so this is just your reminder that it's not about this plastic. That's why the standard edition, they don't even have the workers, they just have tiny little circles. And even though the minis are blown up here, this is larger than you will ever see them, even if you're holding it like right to your eye. So I just really want to use this as a check to say, what brings you joy? Like really what brings you joy? What will help you get it to the table, and why is that such a need, right? It could just be, it needs to be cool. No, it needs to look cool. Yes, I understand, but like, why is it such a need? You've played a card game before and had a great time. You don't play a card and then take the Ace of Spades mini and place it on the card right before you take all the tricks back, right? Because that would be ludicrous. Some of you have just thought to yourself, no, that would be amazing. And to you, I say you have a problem. Or maybe you're the perfect audience for this, right? But I just want to take a moment to take a breath. I know it's easy to get swept up in the shiny. It has happened to me so many times, and that is why this video series exists. But you should really focus on the core element, the core thing that makes you happy. It's not all the shiny, it's not all the glitz and the glam. It's that core relationship to the game and how the game makes you feel and how you always want to pull that game off the shelf because it's the best. And I just think the core of the game really needs to be there for that to happen. So that's number 2. And finally, we're moving on to number 1. The number 1 reason you shouldn't back Puerto Rico. Reason number 1 has to do with the game itself, how the game is played, and the important fact that the seat order determines your entire game, which means that you need to be playing this game with people who know it or who don't know it, but who are at the same skill level, because the seat order is a kingmaker in a sense. I've played a lot of this game, probably over 100 times on Board Game Arena. There was a time when I was really going through it, playing a lot of games. And so because of that, when I get together with my parents who also have a copy, who've enjoyed this game, who've played it maybe 5 or 6 times, there's no way that they win. And there's also no way that whoever is sitting to the left of me doesn't come in last, because I'm just inherently better at the game. I've had more practice. I know the strategy, and I know that there is sort of an established meta that has to happen. And you will see in a game of Puerto Rico, especially if you're not using the expansions, the first turns that happen are very similar. You either build so that you can get a small market, right? You want to get one of those small markets before somebody else, or depends on what sort of fields are out there. Can you dominate the corn? Can you do a corn rush strategy? There are set moves that you need to take, and there are completely suboptimal moves to do as your choice. And if somebody does it as their choice, they're done, right? They're basically done from the first couple moves of the game. And that's hardly an exaggeration because of how the game sort of ramps up. In addition, if there are two really good players playing the game and one player who's not, and you're playing in a group of three, the person who will win the game is the person sitting to the left of the new player. That is 98% of the time what will happen. Because it is so easy to make these suboptimal plays, it is so easy to set your opponent up for something, it is so easy to not anticipate the changing of the next round and how the governor passes. And so you need to know that going in. If you're getting this game and you know that there's going to be sort of a skill disparity between your group, or some people might play it more, this game will become not fun for that group of people unless the skill level remains consistent. Because the person who wins will just blow everybody out of the water, and the people who lose, they will have lost by turn 3. And I think that is a really important feeling of the game to talk about. That while I love Puerto Rico, and while I think it is a really great design, I also think that it is potentially a little bit dated because it is so punishing. Right? I find modern board games don't engage in that sort of level of punishing behavior, but they provide a catch-up mechanism, right? And in Puerto Rico, there ain't any of that. You can get blocked out, you can get screwed over, and your game can be done. And so knowing that the seat order itself is essentially a kingmaker should turn a bunch of you off this game if you were unaware. For me, I know this. For me, that makes me not get my game of Puerto Rico off the shelf very frequently because I know that there is that skill disparity now, and I know how it sort of lends itself to the game. I haven't played Puerto Rico in quite a long time, and I still have it in my collection. Like, I haven't gotten rid of it because I still really enjoy the game. However, I don't reach for it because I'm often playing with new players or people who haven't explored it as much as I have. And so I'm trying to be cognizant about their experience and what will be enjoyable for them, and all that sort of stuff. And while the new buildings will change the meta and will change the sort of boring loop, I don't think it's that boring. I think it's actually very exciting, that same repetitive loop, this doing the same things every game and ignoring all the other buildings that are garbage that you figured out are garbage. Because they're just, 10 or so buildings, maybe. Nah, that's too much. 6 buildings that aren't good. They just aren't. It's just objectively bad. And if you buy them, you've wasted your turn, and another player's going to win. But so while that will change the meta, it doesn't change the fact that the seat order will be one of the largest determining factors in your game. And if you play with an unbalanced seat order, or have that one player in your group who isn't good at resource management, then the outcome of the game's already determined. It's whoever's sitting next to that person. So I think that's a really important thing to bring up. That is the reason why I don't play Puerto Rico as much as I have in the past, and why I sort of just played on Board Game Arena, because you can match up with people of similar skill levels and then really have a good time. But if you're getting into this game, that is something that you need to know. The seat order is killer, and that's why it is the #1 reason. So that's it. Those are the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Puerto Rico. I really wanted to get this, I really did. I really wanted to get 1897 just to support and for the refresh and for the nice refresh of the art, and to get the expansions, because in my little sort of copy here, I don't have any of the expansions. But I also don't want to pay $100 for a game that cost me $30 back in the day. For a game that could cost me $50 right now. I just don't see that sort of value proposition in what is currently being offered. And so that's why I'm not getting the game. It is not for any reason of disliking the game. I think the game is fantastic. I still think it is an amazing design, and deserves to be played. And I'm thrilled that it is being accessible to so many people. But there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that come with it. There's a lot of baggage, and there's a lot of little mechanical things that make it not get to the table. So please share your 5 reasons, or any of your reasons down below, why you're getting it, why you're not. Try to convince me. Either way, I like hearing from you. And I think it's great to have just a wonderful collection of well-reasoned arguments or excitement or points down below, so that we all can help each other make the correct purchase. At the end of the day, we want the board games to go into the hands of the people who will play them and the people who will enjoy them. Because if that's the case, then the excitement for the hobby grows. We don't want people to get a game that they hate, because then the excitement diminishes. So contribute to that excitement, or don't. And just give me a thumbs down, because I'm a naughty bad boy and telling you not to get yourself a little treat. I understand both of those sentiments. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, and I don't have any clue as to when I am ever going to play this game again, but just holding it makes me really want to, so I don't know. We will see. We will see.